Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. Iran has a new president. Former nuclear negotiator Hassan Rouhani, a moderate conservative, won a comfortable victory in the first round of the election. He's not a reformist, but he is supported by some people in reformist quarters, and his record on the nuclear issue has raised cautious optimism that détente with the West could be at hand. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by one of France's most prominent experts on Iran. Clément Terme is a researcher at the EHESS and author of Relations Between Tehran and Moscow since 1979, among several other works. Thank you for being on the program. The two top challenges for Rouhani obviously are easing sanctions and finding a solution on the nuclear issue. In 2003 to 5, he actually suspended uranium enrichment. Do you think that could be the way forward now?
Yes, he can suspend part of the nuclear program. I don't know about exactly the suspension of enrichment, but he can accept more transparency regarding Iranian nuclear activities in exchange of ease of sanction. Because what he needs now to deliver to Iranian people the promises to improve the economic condition of daily life of Iranian people. Because this election was about international issue given the nuclear confrontation with the West. The cost is very high for Iranian people, and Rouhani promises the Iranian people to improve their living conditions.
What does more transparency mean then?
More control from the IAEA, and he can also propose many visits and to build trust also with the West. Because the problem with Ahmadinejad, he was like a problem for the West also, because he has taken hard stance against Israel on the Palestinian issue also, and regarding the Syrian crisis. So there is a link also between the Iranian nuclear program and the Iranian regional power in the Middle East.
Let's just imagine that the IAEA had more access. Would that be enough for the European powers and the Americans to ease sanctions, or would they demand that uranium be suspended? What's the bottom line for the West?
I think it depends what is the goal of the sanction. If the goals of the sanction is regime change, nothing will be enough. But if the goal of the sanction is just to make sure that the Iranian program is peaceful, we can find an agreement with Iran, I think. And Rouhani will try his best to improve the relation with the West, because the relation with the West is the main problem facing the Iranian economy right now.
What do you think the supreme leader's attitude is going to be in all this, as he's the top decision maker on the nuclear issue?
I think Rouhani helps the supreme leader because he proves that now the Islamic Republic of Iran is still able to organize election. He brings people to vote to the election. So he provides legitimacy to the Iranian Islamic system. So now the supreme leader, I think, will reward Rouhani, giving him room to maneuver with the West to fulfill his economic program inside Iran.
What do you think is the bottom line for the supreme leader, though, for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Is it that enrichment must continue at all costs, or is there any margin for maneuver there?
There is a symbolic dimension. I think Iran needs a recognition, a formal recognition of its right to enrich uranium, but also they need a small capacity, I think, like experimental capacity to enrich uranium. And this, the West can accept it. I think this is the red lines from the Iranian point of view. They want to masterize the nuclear technologies because they accuse the West of nuclear apartheid.
Let's just imagine, though, that whatever Iran offers, it's not enough for the P5+1. If the economy in Iran gets much worse, is it conceivable that people will blame Khamenei? Could they break a taboo and say the supreme leader is basically at fault here?
I think the Iranian system is well organized because the supreme leader can change president like a French president will change his prime minister.
Sure, but everybody knows that the supreme leader is in charge, and I'm the same, ultimately.
Yes, but I think
even though he's not elected.
Yeah, he's showing the lines, but it's a smart system. I'm just saying that he could deresponsabilize himself and saying it's not me, and this is still working for 34 years. So, but the point is, I think the supreme leader is afraid of economic collapse in Iran, and he wants the system to survive. If he thinks that the system is threatened, he will find a deal with the West to save the Islamic Republic of Iran.
So by self-preservation almost.
Exactly.
In the end. Let's take a look at some reactions to this election, to the victory of Mr. Rouhani. I want us to listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, talking after this surprise victory.
The international community must not give in to wishful thinking or temptation and loosen the pressure on Iran for it to stop its nuclear program.
So obviously he's going to keep up the pressure. But do you think Rouhani's election has made the possibility of an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities less likely, or is it far too early to say?
It's more difficult for Israel and neoconservative in the US and Europe to demonize Iran. And the Iranian people show by voting to Rouhani or moderate that they want a dialogue with the West. So it's more difficult nowadays to military threaten Iran and to use the military option, given they will attack the Iranian people too. So the situation is better for Iran right now.
Perhaps the best way to outflank Israel diplomatically would be for Iran to offer direct talks with the United States. Is that a possibility under Rouhani's presidency?
I think now the ball is in the camp of the US. They have to deal directly with Iran. They were quite positive in reacting to the presidential election, more than in Europe. So I think there is a hope also with Obama that the mistake of George Bush with President Rouhani after 2001 will not be repeated this time.
And that could include other areas of cooperation, I mean, with Afghanistan or Iraq as well, in principle.
Yeah, I think the Islamic Republic of Iran is a state, a strong state. So it can help to stabilize the situation in Afghanistan after the withdrawal of NATO troops after 2014. Also in Syria, Iran can be part of the solution, is also part of the problem. So it has to be included in the diplomatic negotiations, the Geneva II conference, because without Iran, it cannot be a diplomatic or political solution to the Syrian crisis. But also with Lebanon, because I think the situation is unstable also in Lebanon. Iran is very strong through the Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is also a Lebanese party. So we need Iran in the Middle East to stabilize the situation.
Western policymakers certainly don't seem to see it that way, as you're describing now. But I want to come on to some domestic issues. I mean, is Rouhani in a position to relax some of the restrictions that have been put in place in the last few years, for example, on students, perhaps more freedom of expression, or again, is that wishful thinking?
I don't think, for this side, at least it is not wishful thinking, because during Rouhani presidencies, the 2 terms of President Rouhani, the daily life in Iran was more relaxed, and the young people could go out, and it was a bit better. It's not a huge difference, like for the international policy. It's not a great difference, but still it matters, because for the daily life of young Iranian, I think it's better to have Rouhani than Ahmadinejad.
Aren't the Basij militias, though, more powerful now, more ingrained in various sections of Iranian society, more so than they were in the time of President Khatami? Won't this make Rouhani's job a lot more difficult?
It's difficult to assess because Basij militia are very diverse. There is like young Iranians are going to the Basij just for economic advantage, for favor. I mean, because you have like a cinema ticket of cinema for free, or you have these small advantages. So these people didn't believe in the Basij ideology. The problem is the believers, the young Iranian who believe in the Basij ideology against the West, the cultural threat, and the Islamist values. But we do not know what part of the Basij they represent. This is a problem. But I think now the youth in Iran is partly at least westernized, and they want a better relationship with the world. They show that in the election, at least.
You touch on something very important there, which is, I mean, it's often said about Iran that the young Iranians have no memories of 1979, and they want something different.
Yes, they just want to live their life and to be free like everyone. I think the point with the Rouhani presidency, they will maybe respect more the private life of people. Because during Ahmadinejad 2 terms, the conservative thinks that the West is a threat and they want to manage the threat, the internal threat of the West. And there is not such a paranoia with the reformist and the moderate conservative.
One final question. We're running out of time, Clément Terme, but does the Green movement have any future?
I think the Green movement votes for Rouhani, but not for the reason that Rouhani will change everything, because he's a part of a participative theocracy. Iran, we have to be fair, analyzing Iran. It's not a democratic regime, so it's just a theocracy, but it's the best part of the theocracy, at least. So I think the Green hope to change the society through political participation to the system, because they're also afraid of the end of the state. Because now I think in the Middle East, the problem is the failure of the state.
Okay, we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much for being a guest on the interview, Clément Terme, editor of Iran and the Challenges of the 21st Century. That's all for this edition of The Interview on France 24.